Let's mutilate our children or kill them before they are born. Die. Let's innovate to zero carbon emitters. Die. Let's make everyone obese and kill us all those who are poor. They're just relocation centers. Die. Death, some more. Diversity, inclusion, and equity. Progress is so good now. It's sad there is no more. Die. Progress at all costs. Let's progress some more. Die. Okay, ladies and ugly, bald, fat men, let's get going here. This is episode 2 of the Dark Star Rising podcast and show. I'm your host, JARV, and today we interrupt our already scheduled programming of Atlantis and something else to bring you a special announcement. Not only a special announcement, but I guess this is going to consume the whole video. If you're watching on Rumble, share, subscribe. If this is a podcast and you're listening, give it a 5-star review and share it. Check out rumble.com/JARV8. Alrighty, let's get into it. So, if my browsers can ever load, we had to change what we were doing because this was absolutely necessary. Absolutely necessary. This one thing took over everything now. And this thing is renewable energy. Alright. So, because of all this talk about driving Teslas, and ever since the Qatar pipeline was shut down, I guess it's been irking me to share a little piece of reality. You can call it a gray pill, a green pill, or just a wake up fuckface. Any way you look at it, this computer's about to crash. Is it just my mouse? Okay. Any way you look at it, it's time to share the script. Can we first actually get, not this, can we first actually get, come on. Alright. Well, we're sharing the screen now. Boom. And, this is the Dark Star Rising. Where is loading? Okay. Well, I guess this is where we're starting. How does that look? Alright. Is it center enough? Boy, these are... Alrighty. Mines, Minerals, and Green Energy. A reality check. From Mark P. Mills. July 9th, 2020. Energy Environment Regulations. This is ManhattanInstitute.org. As policymakers have shifted focus from pandemic, I have to read really fast because to go over this whole thing, it's not that long, but it's gonna take some speed. It'll be more funny that way. As policymakers have shifted focus from pandemic categories challenges to economic recovery, infrastructure plans are once more being actively discussed, including those related to energy. Green energy advocates are doubling down on the pressure to continue or increase the use of wind, solar, and electric cars. Left out of the discussion is any serious consideration of the broad environmental supply chain and implications of renewable energy. Okay. Now this is one of those fallacies that people are so stupid. Like, prove me wrong, but what powers your car? The electric car. What powers it? Electricity, Dumbo. Yes. And where does 80% of the electricity come from? It's actually, it turns out, Teslas burn more fossil fuels than gasoline trucks. This is a check, reality check. That's more or less true. Oh, come on, YouTube. But it's a little bit more complicated, of course, than that. Let's go ahead and look at JARV Rumble. This is not the one I wanted. This is not the one that I had. Give me back the one that I wanted. Give me back the one that I had. No, not this one. Everything's taking forever to load. I think this is it. Well, there was a different graph. We'll go over this graph if we can find it again. This graph right here. Obviously the internet is sucking balls right now. Come on. Come on. Alright. So this was in 2020. This is outdated. There was natural gas 40, coal 20, and nuclear 20, and renewables 20. That was basically... That's not what's going on now. I don't think this one's as accurate as the other one I had. But basically what it is right now, if I can get that other one loaded and know I had it, should be this one right here. Yeah, it's this one right here. Let's just actually load. What? I'm not streaming. Why is the internet so shy? Alright, well, we'll take a look at that later. We only have 15 tabs open, or 150. Basically, 80% is still organic. Burning organic matter. Wood is actually still like about 3% or something. Wood. And then the majority is petroleum, aka gasoline. Coal, another thing that you can burn, it's pure carbon. And there was one other organic thing that they burned. That's majority of all power in the United States, like 80%, comes from coal, wood, petroleum, or gasoline, which is depending on where you live, what you call it. And then a freaking other natural gas. I can't remember what it's called. But basically it all comes from burning natural gas, carbon emitters, blah, blah, blah. Okay? The majority. So when people like in the celebrity sphere tell you to drive Teslas, they're morons. Or they're in on it. Either way, it's irrelevant. The point being, you're going to probably be burning actually more carbon emitters driving a Tesla. And that's because there's a reason why the cost of electronic cars are fairly high. New cars are expensive, period, and Teslas are cheaper because they're cheaply made. Bit of a scam ripoff, you ask me. But also, the components used to create those cars, that's a lot of carbon emissions, a lot of greenhouse gases. Terrible, terrible greenhouse gases. How do you vilify the color green? It's like one of my favorite colors. Fuck you. Anyways, the point being, also, the electricity from the batteries, right? That's coming from power plants. Now, there's like 20% nuclear, I believe, and then, which is kind of, people like to argue about that one, whether it's renewable or not. But let's look into the reality. So basically, you're going to actually need you're going to need more fossil fuels with electric cars than you will with gas cars, and that's a fact. And so when they shut down the Qatar pipeline and stop the focus of fracking and getting natural gas from the United States, and they once again import it from Saudi Arabia, it's like they're trying to shut off Americans' access to gas and make it more expensive, and it does go up after that. And then they tell you to drive electric cars, which would then exacerbate the, it's like masturbate, exacerbate. Okay, let's get that out of our system. The supply even more with electric vehicles because they require more petroleum, more coal, more things like that burned to energy. Because basically you're losing energy when you have to create the energy, store it in a battery, and then put it into a car. If you got it straight in a liquid form in a bottle and then you pump it into the car directly, you're saving some energy. So it's like this. They bankrupt the economy. They put a tight hold, basically grab the balls of petroleum so that the prices of petroleum goes up, and the amount of petroleum available in the United States is lower. That's supply and demand, so the prices go up. And then they tell you to drive an electric car, which would then increase the demand on petroleum, not decrease it, because they require more petroleum for electric cars. Why would they do this? Well, it's almost like they're trying to bankrupt the economy and screw over the average people on purpose. But guess who actually profits from higher gas prices? People who don't need to worry about gasoline going up. Well, it's the rich billionaires, it's the 1%, it's the people who are in control of this move, this innovate to zero, this climate emergency narrative. And what else? We've got, okay, renewable energy growing fast in the U.S., but fossil fuels still dominate. Here we go. Right here. Coal went from 22 to 13, natural gas 24 to 30. When you increase the, wait a minute, when you decrease coal, natural gas increases? Interesting. Dude, went up like 7 points. Petroleum went down from 38 to 36. Then you have nuclear electric. Okay, nuclear 8% didn't change much. Hydroelectric 2.8, 2.6. Wood is still maintaining roughly 3% there. And you just added 2.5 wind and like 0.8 solar. But now there's an extra bit of biofuels, okay, and there's waste to energy. So what I actually think it would be a good idea if they could figure out how to turn garbage into a really efficient energy source. It isn't. It's kind of worse than maybe water or whatever new technology you might find. But let's continue with this from Mark P. Mills. As I explored in a previous paper, the new energy economy exercise in magical thinking, many enthusiasts believe things that are not possible when it comes to the physics of fueling society. These people believe things that are not possible when it comes to the physics of fueling society, not least to the magical belief that clean tech energy can echo the velocity of the progress of digital technologies. It cannot. This paper turns to a different reality. All energy producing machinery must be fabricated from materials extracted from the earth. No energy system, in short, is actually renewable, since all machines require the continual mining and processing of millions of tons of primary materials and the disposal of hardware that inevitably wears out. Compared to hydrocarbons, green machines entail, on average, 10-fold increase in the quantities of materials extracted and processed to produce the same amount of energy. What was I saying the whole time? Compared with hydrocarbons, in other words, petroleum, coal, and all those things I was talking about, compared to the organic burning methods like gasoline, the green technology, quotations, entail on average a 10-fold increase in the quantities of materials extracted that need to be processed to produce the same amount of energy. So they take 10 times as many materials to create solar and wind electricity. And you get the same amount of electricity, right? But it takes 10 times as much materials. So it's just plain fucking inefficient, is what this guy is saying. It's a waste. And the concept of renewable, it's a scam. It's not actually renewable. They're not actually green. It's just a fucking bold-faced lie. This means any significant expansion of today's This means that any significant expansion of today's modest level of green energy, currently less than 4% of the country's total consumption versus 56% from oil and gas, will create an unprecedented increase in global mining for needed materials. In other words, when you cut down all of the gasoline and you demand everyone drive electric cars, you're going to need to extract even more materials and minerals that you need to build the windmills and other things. It's easier with fracking because you just go boop, 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 and you get the oil, as opposed to, well, we gotta build whole new things. We gotta build windmills. We gotta build all these different power plants, and nuclear power plants, whatever you want. So it'll create an unprecedented increase in global mining for needed minerals, radically exacerbating existing environmental and labor challenges in emerging markets. Now you might be like, well, that's new jobs, but they're also taking away jobs at the same time, so it's not exactly a net positive jobs. Is it roughly the same amount? Well, it's something to debate, but it's definitely not just straight a good thing, because you think that littering the earth with garbage would be worse than polluting with carbon emissions, but we'll get into that. Where many mines are located and dramatically increase the U.S. imports and the vulnerability of America's energy supply chain. As recently as 1990, U.S. was the world's #1 producer of minerals. Today is its 7th place. Even though the nation has vast mineral reserves worth trillions of dollars, America is now 100% dependent on imports from some 17 key minerals, and for another 29, over the half domestic needs are imported. Why? Why can't we make our own stuff? Why can't we create and dig the minerals ourselves? We're just going to end up getting it from China or somewhere else. Literally, Canadian wood is chopped down in Canada, put on a boat, and shipped to China to be cut up, turned into 2x4s, and then sent back. That is literally happening, or to large chunks, literally happening on a daily basis. This is ridiculous. Building wind turbines and solar panels to generate electricity, as well as batteries to fuel electric vehicles, requires on average 10 times more quantity of materials compared with building machines using harder carbons to deliver the same amount of energy. Wake the fuck up. This is like a big green pill from this guy. This single electric car contains more cobalt than 1,000 smartphone batteries. Let me just say that again. A single electric car contains more cobalt, which is it's a metal that you need to extract from the ground, which takes a lot of energy, which burns carbon emissions, than 1,000 smartphone batteries. The blades on a single wind turbine have more plastic than 5 million smartphones. One turbine. More plastic than 5 million smartphones. And a solar array that can power one data center uses more glass than 50 million phones. You know, fucking don't worry about throwing away your old phones. One turbine will take care of the next 5 million. Just stop making turbines. Replacing hydrocarbons with green machines under current plans, never mind aspiring from a greater expansion, will vastly increase the mining of various critical minerals out there in the world. For example, a single electric car battery weighing 1,000 pounds requires extracting and processing of 500,000 pounds of materials. Average over its battery life, each mile of driving an electric car consumes 5 pounds of earth. Using an internal combustion engine consumes 0.2 pounds of liquids per mile. When oil, natural gas is a coal and needed to produce the all that shit you use to build shit. Concrete, steel, plastics, and purified minerals to build green machines. They're not green. They're not renewable. It's been a scam the whole time. I mean, they're just lying to you. They're not getting anything out of it. I mean, it is a $22 trillion environment sphere scam industry. But who gets the money? Well, it's mostly the people on top and the people who build the things. But it doesn't mean that they would have gotten paid better than if they were fracking, right? Most of the money goes up to the top, 1%. Just like in most scams that people seem to not be able to, it just hits them in their head one day and they realize it's a scam, but for the rest of their life, usually for their entire life, they're just like, what? I'm a politician. That guy's the worst guy. Vote me in because he's the worst. Okay. The end is coming. Give me $1 billion right now and I will stop it. In 10 years, it will come if I don't stop it. Okay. Every 10 years. Okay. By 2050, with current plans, the quantity of worn-out solar panels, much of it non-recyclable, will constitute double the tonnage of all today's global plastic waste, along with 3 million tons per year of unrecyclable plastic from worn-out wind turbine blades. By well, plastic, their fucking number. They love this number. 2030, more than 10 million tons per year of batteries will become garbage. Download PDF. Fuck yeah. Download PDF. This is fucking bam. This guy. Alright, so what we're trying to do here, I want to show you this. Don't tell anyone about this font. I don't want to get taken down. It's like my new favorite font. It has a secret message hidden inside. I mean, it's like when you do the scam 1 year, nobody finds out. But when you repeat the same scan over and over and over again for the past like 135 years, whatever, since they started measuring in 1860, whatever, no, I don't know what it was. It eventually some people are going to start picking up on the fact that it's a scam. I mean, it's a top-down pyramid scheme, and I can't load anything because I guess we're just going to cut off the internet because this internet just doesn't work. We don't need internet for the stream directly. So I did create a whole thing for this, but that was before we changed the. Here's how a pyramid scheme works. Boop. Okay, people at the top control the narrative. They educate the people at the bottom, and then once the people at the bottom are educated, they never need to be educated. In other words, indoctrinated. They never need to be monetized. What that means is, or directly paid. They're being monetized. It's just the top 1% that make the money for the most part. They do have to pay the workers down here who build the turbines and whatever, right? But most of the money goes to the top people running the scam, and they pay the politicians. They literally pay your politicians and the climate alarmists to peddle the fear scam industry, and they take the money, yes, out of your taxes from the bottom. It goes from your taxes from the bottom straight to the top, go passing through the middle and sprinkling a little bit so that all of Elon Musk's employees can be fed. But most of it goes straight to Elon Musk. He's one of the biggest proponents of this $22 trillion environment fear scam industry with his electric vehicles and everything else. And trust me, he knows it's a scam. He has a few others up his sleeve. Okay? This is how this works. It's worked this way for 100 years, and it's not my fault if you too fucking gullible you can't see it. I'm just trying. I'm trying to help out. I'm trying to help people realize what kind of. Why does this can't load? Oh. Well, what's the choice? No internet or shit internet? Like, that's not much of a choice now, is it? Alright. Creation box. Alright, this is what I was going to do today. But it turns out I can't really do that today if I'm focusing on this. This is not like this is actually a worse, a better, what was I saying? This is a perfectly fine thing to talk about. I'm not even excited to do the other thing that I had planned. I'm just kind of like trying to make sure all the data stays or whatever so I can do it someday. What the heck are we doing? Oh, right. It doesn't like... Fuck. Alright. I'll show you that later. Right. Download PDF. Alright. Here's another article. If you haven't had enough green pills today. Why green energy is impossible. High on the left's agenda of maintaining 100% green generation electricity, if not 100% of energy period. Joe Biden, among others, have come out with 100% green energy, blah, blah, blah. Just wind, solar, and a little bit of other stuff. Would it be feasible to get 100% of electricity wind and solar? No, it would not. Basic problems with these energy sources include inefficiency and intermittency. Wind turbines produce energy around 40% of the time, and solar panels do much worse than that in parts of the country. So how does a utility ensure the lights will go on even at night when the wind isn't blowing? The people's answer is batteries. Produce electricity when the wind is blowing and the sun shining. The store of energy in batteries from electricity is not being generated. Batteries exist, however, of course, we use them all the time. There's a battery, blah, blah, blah. But what is the battery can entire output power the platinum wind farm? Battery does not exist. Further, blah, 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 blah. This is just more of the same thing. I think I've made my point by now. This right here. Oh, well, we could go and do the other things if we're done with this. It's just, it kind of feels like Alright, well, maybe we can get the internets back. We enabled them series of tubas. I don't think so, but it's worth a try, I guess. Oh boy. Oh boy. Oh boy. Are we going to midnight? This might be a short one. So this is just a explosion of green pills today. I guess CDN. Jeez. Okay. I mean, if you're still stuck on the old lies that have been peddling, you know, they were 10 years late. I really want that font. That font summarizes it so perfectly. It's like the internet just don't work. It's like the internet just don't work. Just don't work. Wow. Well, basically, it kind of ruins the whole thing if I try to explain the font. I might have the font somewhere else, but I doubt it. It's a kind of a new font. Jeez. Okay. It's like, doesn't matter what they call it. It's a scam. You know, it was a scam when they called it global warming. It's a scam now that they call it climate change. It doesn't better suit the science. There is no science. It's just a fucking scam. It's as little science as humanly possible. That's the scam. Come the freak on. I'll just add the bit where I had the font. I recorded it. I'll add that to the end of this video, since I record my show not live. I wouldn't record it live if I had two screens. I had to look at chats that exist, and the chats would also kind of have to exist. So, ResearchGate, is green energy really green? The short answer to that is no. No, it's not. Okay? So, my plan was, I guess I finished early with this podcast. This will be a short one, huh? Well, no, my plan was to go. This next topic is for Friday, I guess. The one I had planned, or we could do it now. Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, I think is when I wanted to be doing my podcasts, or show. We'll see if that works out. The first one was Tuesday, obviously, because that's when I got set up, and my internets are just dead. Because why not? Why shouldn't they just be dead? Like Manhattan Institute, Minerals Green Energy. This is the one I really need to load so that I can finish this is it, right? Why? Okay. No internet. The internet's just non-existent. Let's open another browser like Ice Dragon. Let's see if Ice Dragon can do something. I guess Ice Dragon's will be use. Alright, so ManhattanInstitute.org. Is this the one? Oh, I want to save it, bitch. Oh. Save file. Oh, wow. The article was much shorter, and I really liked that article. But now let's see if we can get... There was another one. Let's see if we can find it. It was... What was it called? Yeah, there was a series of professors who were talking to each other. I guess I probably should have started with it, but where is the what was it? No, it'd be green. Power lines. Manhattan Institute. Okay. Jeez. This is what we had. Ice dragon. Okay, so obviously this is probably where I should start, because I already lost the normies as soon as I heard one thing that went against the narrative that was drilled in their heads. This is typically how indoctrination works. Mind you, they like to think of it as education, and the people who are indoctrinated think of their indoctrination that way. But here's a series of, for those people who are normies and still trust experts, a series of experts who are either students or like card-holding experts of science or whatever, talking on a forum. Okay, people of like medical university of wherever that is. Is green energy really green? Okay, that's his question. First guy, Andrew Goddard from Freelance Horticulture LDT. You're right, I didn't answer. No, the simple question, no, they are not sustainable. Further on, exactly, you're right, Professor. I'm not going to pronounce, not going to even attempt both, but the question is much more renewable energy is the best for nature. Dear sir, most of renewable energy technologies can consider it as green energy source and compare with conventional technologies which are used in fossil fuel to produce required energy, the criteria, the blah blah blah. So the bit before was for the people who've given up on the experts, like intelligent savages, as opposed to the people who still think that experts actually give a damn, considering what we've seen the quote experts say. Now, it might be like, you just picked the wrong experts. Well, that's just it. It's a word. Anybody can be that word. I'm an expert. You know, I'm an expert at reading E's. When these plants are in operation, when they're green, blah, blah, blah. I think green energy, this is a young student, you can tell. I think green energy is green because of small quantity. If energy is widely applied a large amount of among quantity, it's not green anymore. But Mr. Ding and Wing, the green energy actually requires more material, as we discussed before. It requires more energy, so it's not a small quantity. It's very big quantity, and so your whole thing falls apart. Solar PV works out to be 50 G of CO2 per kilowatts compared to coal's 75 G of CO2 per kilowatt, about 20 times cleaner. But we have to consider what will happen after 30 years. Recycling these panels will be a complex process with negative environmental impacts. Green is extremely unclear and ambiguous word. A member of the physicist community, I prefer using the term low carbon process. But as we know, like I just discussed, it actually electric and solar and wind actually produce more oftentimes greenhouse gases than coal and nuclear fission, freaking what's the other one? Gas. Dear Professor, I agree your words are, dear Professor, each renewable, generally easy case and uniquely, blah, blah, blah. In terms of harmful emissions in the air, these technologies are certainly progressive. But I think renewable energy technologies are polluting too much of a nature. Wait a minute, what? The rivers around the factories are built. Boom! Exactly, you're right. But the question is the best energy for nature. Housing and building national blah, blah, blah. Absolutely no, but the relatively old resources, yes. No, green energy, the pollution technologies to varying degree. Unfortunately, here comes a based green pill from Vladimir Takl. The green energy isn't green enough. Even reducing one Novus factor, we activate another. The extension of solar energy will cause landscape interventions and use of toxic metals. I'm just going to go with metals. Yet the wind energy will kill birds, as their migration routes depend on the windrows. Whatever. Hydrogen and lithium energy requires extension on rare earth mining, which pollutes the atmosphere. Moreover, rare elements are about to be consumed, which will be posed to the question of mining regeneration. So we have to think whether the green energy is really green or not. No, it's not. Blah, 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 blah. Research center, blah, 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 blah. This guy's got a lot to say. No, not much to say, many words. I think fundamental issues, the total solar input is huge, untapped. But we have to capture it as we're discussing. It's fair to say that living things have evolved on the system of Earth with components and structure, blah, blah, blah. Fossil fuels were an easy way of accessing an efficient way. The challenge is really to develop more living systems. Bala. Yeah, he's just saying it's a challenge where it's not going to be easy. And then these are the answers. Right. You're right. So that's for the people. Even these experts are green. Green ain't green, son. Green ain't green. Shit. Does our internet other thing work by now? Boom. Close 2 tabs. Okay. No, this one doesn't work at all. Weird. Alright. We're going to shift focus. We're still on the green pills. Oh, now that I close it, all the tabs load. Interesting. But it's going to disappear closed here in a second. Which one is the browser that I use for the thing that has no things? I guess Ice Dragon again. I've already given like 5 green pills, but let's go for the... I think it's more like about 3 green pills. So let's give you a big fat one to take care of those last 2 green pills. What was the thing? Okay. This might be easier to explain without research because I already have it in my head. I already have the knowledge. You do your own research, baby. If you're too afraid to do research, then you have to believe whatever I say. If you can't do your own research, you have to believe me. That's how it works. Alright? Don't believe the random talking heads. I don't have a head, clearly. But I'm a decapitated voice. I'm just like I'm a leaf on the wind. Watch how I soar. With an E. I mean, basically the chemistry in high school still applies. You have a very complicated series of systems, like I talked about in the previous video, but it does boil down to something like this. Here, let's draw a cliff, right? And we have some. This is water. Fish. There's a demon right here. No. There's some trees here, right? And there's the clouds, right? And then there's the atmosphere. Okay? Now, the sun and space. Okay. So, I'm going to basically break down to you how some of these complicated systems work. And this part is actually going to be fairly similar. I mean, simple. However, it'll probably take a while because even the simplest thing is pretty complex. And if it's simple, if it's extremely simple, it's probably some data is being missed. They're not telling you something. Don't trust anyone who tells you it's really simple. Everything is really simple, okay? Because you're missing data. If that's the case. What we do have is we have the sheeple, like I talked about in previous podcast, check it out. And basically, sheeple eat plants because they don't eat meat anymore. And these sheeple then poop the plants out, right? But these plants are trees. The plants take the water that rains down after evaporating from the pond. And these plants also take, so they take the water and they also take the sunlight from the sun. Alright? They eat the minerals that come from the poop that the sheeple pooped, right? And also, the sheeple exhales CO2. They take the CO2, they use the carbon, which is 2 carbon for each CO2, to build their body, literally. You shit out with your mouth the thing that builds plants. So plants are basically just your face shit. And then they shit out oxygen and you eat their shit. Their poop is oxygen. You need that to survive. Sheeple. Alright? So this system works really well with the water and stuff combined. Now, here's a myth I'm going to bust right open. CO2, they say, is the major knob that turns the handle of climate change. That's simply false. Okay? It's not the main thing. It's one of the minor contributors to greenhouse gases. Not major, minor. In fact, it's unclear how much it actually contributes to greenhouse gases. It's basically insufficient. It's basically not enough to really, there's not a lot of measuring of it because it's just so insignificant. But let's say it was. No, let's not say it was because it's not. But you know what it is? Methane, which is H4O. Okay? Methane, H4O, hydrogen, oxygen, just like water is carbon and oxygen. I mean, water is hydrogen and oxygen, and so is methane, hydrogen and oxygen. Carbon dioxide is carbon and oxygen. Carbon is the basic structure for all organic life on planet Earth, for the most part. You also have hydrogen and oxygen. So you have carbon, hydrogen, and oxygen for all life on Earth, basically. Alright? You breathe in the oxygen, the carbon's your skin, hydrogen and oxygen make water, carbon and oxygen make carbon dioxide, like I explained in this little thing here. However, methane is one of the greater contributors to carbon emissions and the greenhouse gases that you're supposed to fear. The greenhouse effect, right? Another major contributor is water. H2O. What? Yes, water vapor. Get through your thick skull. There are other contributors, but CO2 is on the fucking bottom of that list. Okay? And here now I'm going to tell you why that's good. The atmosphere is comprised of a lot of different things, but one of the things it's comprised of, one of the major ones, is hydrogen. However, there's more nitrogen and other things. In fact, nitrogen is probably what most of the atmosphere is comprised of, we're told. So, hydrogen, nitrogen, oxygen, carbon dioxide, these form the atmosphere. Methane, however, is a really heavy, okay, I'm not going to use that term heavy because I'm not an expert on methane, but I know enough about methane. How heavy or light it is, it must be light enough to float up, because water vapor and methane float up into the atmosphere, okay, making the atmosphere thicker, thus creating the greenhouse effect. Now, what is the greenhouse effect? Is it like mass effect? Huh? And for those of you who are listening, I'm just scribbling on this thing. You'll probably gain more data not looking at what I'm doing, especially since I have it full screened and so you can't see all of it. Come on. Such noob mistakes. Noob mistakes me making today. Alright? So, this makes what carbon emissions do, greenhouse gases like water and methane, and maybe even carbon dioxide to the smallest little degree, pack the atmosphere up high in the, like above the ionosphere, I believe, to make it thicker. And this creates the greenhouse effect. What the greenhouse effect is essentially the rays of sunlight bounce off. And it creates this insulating effect to where it makes the earth warmer. Okay? Warmer, however, is good. Warmer is good for organic life. Get that through your thick skull. Alright. Maybe you don't have a thick skull. Maybe it's already passed right through and gone out the other side. Let me rephrase that again. Warmer is good. Basically, what we have happening to Earth over the past, insert very long period of time here, is atmosphere has been escaping. This does this all the time, constantly leaching out into space. Because it can. Okay? And the one thing that we are aware of that keeps it from escaping is greenhouse gases. All right? Now, why would we need atmosphere? Why is atmosphere a good thing? Why is warming a good thing? Well, organic life on Earth, the types that we have right now, excel more, they do better in warm temperatures. Just generally speaking, if you disagree, move to Alaska. Let me know how it is. And then, when you have the warmer temperatures, life flourishes. Not only does the animals flourish, but also the plants. It's greener now than it has been in like the past 2 to 10,000 years. More carbon dioxide, which is food for the plants, means more oxygen, which is food for the animals. And the cycle repeats. The more carbon dioxide you have doesn't affect the atmosphere all that much, but the other things like methane and water, which is emitted from nuclear power plants, create this warming greenhouse effect that makes the world warmer and more hospitable to life and keeps more of the atmosphere from escaping. Now, what happens when you have zero atmosphere or low atmosphere? Well, zero atmosphere would equal zero life. At least the life that you like, yourself and other mammals. And then low atmosphere would equal low life. So you actually want greenhouse gases. They are a good thing. There's been a 5,000, I think it was a 5,000,000, 5,000, 500,000. Fuck, I forget the exact number, but it was like 500,000 times more carbon dioxide in the atmosphere back during the dinosaurs period, but also than we have now. And then also roughly an insane amount of methane and the other things that actually make the world warming. And during that time, there were big animals like dinosaurs, big insects like big fucking insects, seriously, and all sorts of kinds of life that flourished and flew around the thick atmosphere. More atmosphere then, less atmosphere now. Put math. Do the math. Do the math. 10 atmosphere, then 2 atmosphere. What happened? What happened to that 8 atmosphere? Where did it go? It went out into space. It's constantly leaching out into space. During the time of the ice ages, I would reckon it leaches out a little bit more. Could be wrong. But when you have a lot of atmosphere, a lot of carbon dioxide, not so much, but a lot of methane and a lot of water vapor. But carbon dioxide still is pretty good because, like I said, it does keep the cycle going with giving you more oxygen and so on and so on. And with the carbon dioxide, the plants eat it, and then the plants might poop out methane, or the plants feed the cows, and the cows poop out methane. And the cows pooping out methane is good because, by the way, don't feel guilty. The whole cult of veganism is just another postmodern religion. It's built upon the $22 trillion environment fear scam industry, aka climate change, and it's also like a pseudo. It's not science, but it's like a pseudo religion where they vilify eating beef and everything else. But actually, eating beef is one of the best things you could do for the environment. Mind you, there is no such thing as an environment. I'm just using that word. Instead of using the word I should use, planet Earth. Okay? So, if you eat beef, you're forcing the cows to poop. The cows poop out methane. Methane is greenhouse gas. Makes the world warmer, which is more hospitable for life. But also, methane and water and these other greenhouse gases keep the atmosphere on Earth and keeping it from escaping into the space. Which is great, because you kind of need atmosphere to breathe, you kind of need atmosphere for the plants and everything else on planet Earth to live. If there's no atmosphere, there's no life. Get that through your thick fucking skull. Alright. Now I think I've drilled this until I've beaten the dead cow deader. But let's dig deeper into the $22 trillion environment fear scam industry. Okay? Because another thing I've learned through my research over the years, recently, now that Europe has gone more climate change friendly, we'll just say, what they term renewable green, but as we've discovered, is neither renewable or green, but more electric and more wind, solar. Once they've introduced these things into Europe and the European Union and gone 50% in France or Spain, some other places, 50% solar and wind, they've actually consumed more organic fuels, as in petroleum, gas, coal, insects, poop. So wait a minute, they're doing the exact opposite of what they're saying they're doing? They're actually burning more carbon emitters? Well, if they would just be honest to us, they could be like, okay, look at guys. These carbon emitters that create these greenhouse gases, that create this greenhouse effect, it's better for life. It stops the atmosphere from escaping into space, and it gets things warmer, which is more hospitable for all life on planet Earth, generally speaking. So let's just actually build electric things, because that actually burns more. Because we have to build the things made of the plastic, which burns. Plastic is an oil byproduct. And it's kind of reverse logic, but if you could get people behind you, then they'd be like, oh yeah, we want to save the world. Don't let the atmosphere go away, so we have to build electric. Because it's actually more costly and produces more carbon emissions and methane emissions and other chemicals. That some of those chemicals could be bad for the atmosphere, sure, but we get the methane and the oxygen and the water vapor, which makes it warmer. But they're not. Instead, they tell you the exact opposite. They tell you this lie that basically solar and wind is better for the environment, planet Earth. There is no environment. There's ecosystems, billions of ecosystems, of systems, of wind systems, air systems, ground systems, animals, biospheres, places and groups and things. Okay. But there's no environment. Environment's a made-up bullshit word. It's basically like saying everything. Climate change everything, right? And the thing is, but no, they won't be honest. Because it's not really about saving planet. The planet's not fucked. It's fine. There is no climate crisis. The planet is not fucked either way. It's not about saving the planet or making it better for people or anything. It's just about making money. They found a way to scam people. Okay? If it walks like a scam, talks like a scam, reasons like a scam, looks like a scam, appears like a scam, and acts in every way, shape, and form like a scam and be a scam, then it's a fucking scam. And it's a $22 trillion environment fear scam industry, in fact, because what happens over the past 10 years, every 2 years, the world spends $2 trillion on this scam. And somewhere around, I believe, 1.7 trillion comes out of it. You might be like, well, they're wasting like 0.3 trillion. But that's not actually how it works. You see, the money comes from you. It doesn't come back to you. It goes to the people who build the windmills and stuff, yes. But most of it, like 90%, goes to the people who spread the narrative, like the politicians, the puppets, and the scientists who are climate alarmists, and to the billionaires who own these companies, like Tesla, and even like the oil companies, if they're going green themselves. This is how the scam operates. They take the money from you and they give it to them. It doesn't matter if it's a net positive profit, 2 trillion for the whole world to spend, and it's like 3 trillion profit, or 3 trillion comes out, so you have 1 trillion net profit, or if it's a net loss, because all of it is a profit for them and a loss for you. Do you get it? You're everyone on planet Earth, for the most part, with a few countries like China, the exception, and maybe some African countries, pay their taxes for this scam. Okay? And it is a scam. And every 10 years or so, I'm going to see if I can find that video now so we can just get through it. Get to it, then get through it. Every few years or so, this scam is regenerated, called a new name. Global warming, climate change. Well, now we'll call it climate crisis. Now we'll call it buzz fog. Blah, blah. Huh? And then, all right. and then they just go at it again. Okay, so is this it? Okay, ladies and I use the term gentlemen. Was this my last podcast? And everyone else? No, that's PP show and tell. What? This might be it. Or is this my last episode? You guys want to see the most based font? Yes. And I'm kind of tired of using that cringe overused term. Yes. Which is completely meaning something else now. Based comes from like original, your human or like natural organic tendencies, your based desires for food, shelter, and reproduction. Like that's what based means. But now it's just become just like this word that you say, like kind of like, man, that's right wing. But no, this is legitimately one of the coolest fonts, and it totally caught me on surprise and made me laugh, because there's no way. There's no way. This is hilarious. This is great. This is Climate Crisis 1979. Climate Crisis 1990. Climate Crisis 2000, 2010, 2019, 2030, 2040, 2050. See how it fades as it goes down? Beautiful. Beautiful. Every 10 years or so, it's a new climate crisis, because they ought to re-up the scam, because people start figuring it out. And then they got to call everyone who finds out it's a scam a racist, because that makes sense. Or maybe a fascist, because that makes more sense. Or maybe they just hate people, or maybe they're anti-science, because they decided all science. By the way, science is not a consensus. Science is not ever a consensus. That's not how science works. Science is research, discovery, experimentation, hypothesis, theory, the scientific fucking method. That's science. If one person is doing the scientific method right, it doesn't matter how many people disagree with him if they're all doing it wrong. And the majority of these people who are loud and vocal, climate alarmists, are doing it wrong. Actually, the climate realists tend to be doing the science a lot better. And there is no climate science genre. You know what I mean? Like to say, oh, I'm going to go study climate science. That's not a genre of science. There's geology, there's biology, there's physics, there's so many different kinds, but none of them are climate. They would use the excuse. In fact, if you had to be able to know everything to talk about that unequivocally and claim to be an expert, like I'm not claiming to be an expert, I'm just showing you what I've learned, but you would have to learn like 5 to 10 different masteries of science just to figure out the climate scam. But who's got that time? You have to. Everyone has to be their own fucking expert at this point in time, because the experts are monetized. They're lying to you. Not all of them. Most of the scientists just keep their fucking face down and do fucking science. But the ones that are allowed typically are monetizing this shit. Okay? This shit started like in the 1800s when they literally took 2 fucking researches and glued them together at the middle. And where did it change? It was like, okay, I can't remember. I might be able to find that. But the graph went like this. Ice, okay? 1 research. We're going to glue it together with the wood. Oh, look! Look at where it jumped up really high right there. That's amazing. It's not like we just glued 2 different researches together and act like they're the same thing. This was used as the basis for all fucking climate fucking bullshittery. Right? Gluing 2 things together, like the survey of wood and the survey of ice. That's not science. That's lies and propaganda. But go figure. So now we're back at Ice Dragon. We watched that video. Oh, right. That font. Alright. Now, this is, I think we've already covered at least 5 green pills. So instead of going for any more green pills, if I still haven't convinced you, that's fine. You don't ever have to ever be convinced about the truths about the reality you live in. You can live in a fantasy your whole life. I don't care. I'm just here for the few people who have the capability to hear things that sound truthful and then go and check to see if they are truthful. So, do your own fucking research. Okay. Fuck you, cunts. Of course they want to hide this guy. These people. This is a good place to start. It's not a all you can eat buffet, but it's a good place that sums up the hypocrisies and the nonsense and incomprooperies of these climate alarmists. CDN Climate Discussion Nexus on YouTube. For example, the Little Ice Age. Yes, it was real. Or just a bunch of videos. Okay? There are many other sources, and I'm going to try to find you one more. For example, look if you can find what scientists who have no foot in the game, so to speak, are saying. Not the politicians who are being paid by the $22 trillion environment fair scam industry, but look for the people who are in fact neutral if you can. Find neutral people these days and see what they say. You know, don't just take one place. Here we go. I mean, if you just go to Wikipedia, right, it's like you're just asking to be spoon-fed lies. Because Wikipedia is one of the most unreliable and yet still somehow massively overfunded places of Marxist nonsense and incomproopery. Now, some things in Wikipedia they get right, but typically when it comes to things that sound political, like the $22 trillion environment fair scam industry, they get wrong. But you can use Wikipedia. I'm just saying there are other sources out there. Let's see here. There's one thing that needs to be said, and that is people are stupid. I remember people, even to this day, they keep saying, watching videos on YouTube doesn't mean you ruin research. That doesn't count. Or reading your woke magazine doesn't mean you're doing research either. That's even worse. If you're talking about research or looking at data, all data is data. Okay? Now there's good data and bad data. Sure, it's true data and false data. But you can find everything on YouTube or some other video website that you can't find on MSN.com or MSM.com, MSNBC, you know, like let's say all you did was read Vice News, right? You would only have one perspective, one group of data. However, if all you did was watch YouTube videos and not just one channel or 2 channels, you would have way more different inputs of data. Okay? Videos can contain data. And so like when people say like watching YouTube videos doesn't count, they're full of fucking shit. You can learn how to be a welder on watching videos. By watching videos you can learn how to box. You can fucking learn how to do just about anything. And yes, you can absorb data, if it's truthful data, if it's good data, you can absorb data and become an expert on anything. So never let them have any fucking sway, any push, any high ground, anything. Okay? If you are a visual person like me, you can go to YouTube, Rumble, BitChute, or wherever, and you can find legitimate data there, even more accessible and easy than searching archives of forums and looking at text from established mainstream media outlets. You know, there's an abundance of data on YouTube. It's the #2 search engine, and other places like Rumble and, you know, other video libraries also have a lot of data. Okay, so yeah, don't fucking put up with it. Now there's a lot of data that's like, you know, you can even learn something on some other video streaming site. But China buffet. Huh? What's this? Inspectors find 110 violations at China buffet. That's hilarious. That's just fucking hilarious. But the point is, right? I'll finish this out with giving you like 5 fairly reliable news sources. Okay? We're gonna pivot. Okay? But first, I want to give you some more sources for learning science. Here's one of them that we just encountered earlier, manhattaninstitute.org. Okay, that is a place. Okay, now this isn't quite related, but here's another one called the Thomas Sowell Institute of Personhood. Yes, this is a good place. Not science. It's more about understanding people and things. But he's an academic. He's a smart guy. Thomas Sowell, look at his books. Another good place for learning about things. This is for news. I'm going to spell this wrong. Brit chaps who cover the news. They're on YouTube and other places. And they also have their own website where they do news. And here's another one. Alright. What was it called? Well, I'm trying not to give you resources that have been objectively false an uncountable number of times. For example, the Washington Post, the New York Times, the CNN, stands for Communist News Network, right? Sounds about right. Yeah. Vice News Magazine, or any of those other ones, because you can look at those yourself. Maybe do to see what they're saying. Just understand they have an accuracy of about 13%, meaning like the mass majority of what they say is in question and just generally false. Back in the 50 years ago, the United States federal government had their tendrils inside the 3 main companies that did media, and they were able to manipulate them. What, you don't believe that? Well, nowadays we have hundreds of thousands of companies that the United States federal government has control over through their agents, as in basically ex-Democrats who work at these companies, and they're able to control the narrative across all these different platforms. You think someone would have a different opinion, but no, they're all exactly the same. It's called the MSN, the mainstream media, the corporate news. They've lied to us so much at this point, it's kind of hard to believe anything from their website. So I don't personally use them very often, right? I find other websites, and I don't limit myself to any specific group of websites or whatever, right? So you can always search and find news that way. And the best way to do that is with this little place called DuckDuckGo. Okay, using DuckDuckGo, I'm going to search for DuckDuckGo. Okay, why use this instead of YouTube or Google? Google manipulates data. Google ranks data due to ideology. What that means is, and this is confirmed, during the 2016 election, and also extremely, during the 2016 election for the most part, is just Google was able to manipulate 20 million voters with how they returned searches for Hillary and Trump. Even then, though, their guy, or gal, I should say, wasn't elected. But in 2020, they amped this up, and Facebook and Twitter and all those other companies were helping out, so it was at least 40 million influenced by prioritizing searches to give the correct answers as opposed to the truthful answers or the answers that would naturally pop up in an algorithm. DuckDuckGo is a better, more natural algorithm where you search, it doesn't have a bias, unlike Google, YouTube, Facebook, all the fuckwads. All of the techno-state have their own, obviously Marxist bias. DuckDuckGo still is uncorrupted. That's why I use it for searching news. There are other options, but it's one of the best. Boom. Okay? And here's another one. Now, this is just some places to check out if you want some news that aren't controlled by the billionaires, controlled by the government. These people are self-funded, self-operated, and like the locust eaters, they have a better take with better data, in my opinion. First one that popped up was Fox News. Yeah. Second was CNN. Yeah. See, this is what I'm talking about. This is what would naturally pop up. But don't use it. Like, you can use whoever you want. I don't personally use Fox News. As far as I can throw them, CNN, Google News, NBC, ABC, CSBC, MSN. I use the New York Post a little bit, but for the most part, I don't use USA Today or BBC or any of those others. Because all these fucking people have their own money agendas. And it's not about bringing you news, unlike the people I've shown you so far. It's about selling you ideology and selling you fear. But if you take a little bit from each of them and use them to balance off each other, this can work slightly. Because, for example, if everyone's saying the same thing except for just USA Today, interesting. And then they change the thing and they're like, no, we'll get in with the narrative. And also, if you're like, well, you're full of shit, you should trust everything MSNBC says. Understand this. I was right for 2 years before MSNBC finally admitted there was a possibility that the Covfefe virus escaped from a lab. How was I right when the MSNBC was wrong for 2 years? And you come to me and you say, oh, the MSNBC is more reliable than you. No, me, some random fucking person, is more reliable than the mainstream media, than the corporate news. Because I have a better fucking track record. I'm so fucking far right, I am very rarely wrong. And I'm just telling you what I use. None of this first 500 fucking political is just a Marxist fucking. Yeah, that's about it. Al Jazeera, this is all corporate news, okay? The different thing, the Onion, there you go. The Onion is probably better just because, anyways, the Onion is satire like the Babylon Bee. And the Babylon Bee has actually been calling things satirically funny. You know, they're making it up, and yet their things have been coming true. Because that's the world we live in. Now you gotta go way the fuck down here. And you got to look at the people who aggregate news. And if you're not going to aggregate news, you have to either watch me and listen to or read to other people, or you have to aggregate news yourself. And what aggregate news means, you have to click on all of these, even though they're bad, and all of the independent places, not NPR. For example, there are a lot of independent places. I've given 2 examples, but maybe Blaze or Crowder or like some lefty on YouTube who's all screaming about things. Those are more independent, even though left people tend to be funded by the establishment, the billionaires. They're basically, to aggregate, you just take as much data as you can in and filter it through reality checks and processes in your brain that of common sense and things like that, and doing your own research. And that's a lot of work. So it's better to just have, it's better to do that, obviously, but alternatively, you could just have 3 opposing views shoved into your head and try to work it out between those. Or, for example, the Locust Eaters and Timcast IRL. 2. And then find one that disagrees with these people, generally speaking, but sometimes maybe they're onto something, right? So we're going to find a 3rd one in a second. We've moved on from climate, okay? We're now talking about news and where to get news, okay? So, here's a good place. Independent. They're not corporate news. Yes, it is a company, but they're not corporate news. They're not paid by the billionaires who run the scams. These people are independently funded, like the Locust Eaters. And 3rd one, I would say, would be a good one to use, is just, this is what you do. The corporate is very dangerous, looking at corporate news, but this is what you do. You just click on 3 random ones and you see if they all say the same thing. You know you can't trust them. Because if they all say the exact same fucking words, like they copy and pasted each other, fucking no. Fucking no. And I see that sometimes on YouTube and some of the right-wing commentaries too, and I'm like, wait a minute, you guys got together or something? Because you're saying more or less the exact same thing. You need people who kind of, the Yahoo might aggregate a little bit itself. And sometimes local places are alright, but ultimately, you don't go to News Herald. These guys, and the reason why I'm picking these guys and singling these guys out is because when they get it right, it's really crazy. Because when they give it right, they get banned off of Twitter or Facebook, and the data that they share ends up being correct, true, and not what the establishment likes. So they ban them for that reason. These are the people who brought the story. I mean, you can say whatever you want about them, but they brought the story about a certain animal hunter who should be going by Biden and his laptop. And of course, because it was against the corporate news and the billionaire overlords' plans, it was removed off of Facebook. And that makes these people more credible because they clearly weren't towing the line. Obviously, you can only trust them so much because they're still kind of closer to the corporate perspective. But they're way more reliable than, oh, I'm sorry, for the people not listening, the 3 are the New York Post, yes, because when they're right, the establishment gets bad. Tell truth, speak truth to power. That's what the New York Post is actually doing. Thomas Sowell, not news, but also the Manhattan Institute, all right, CDN, which is the Climate Discussion Nexus, for some climate things. Obviously, use DuckDuckGo to find your own resources other than that. And Timcast IRL, It's a good news source. The locust eaters. All right, and that's all I'm going to give you as far as extra sources you may have not heard. With one final source, we don't cover news so much myself these days, but on our podcast we will be discussing a little bit here and there. So make sure you turn into a werewolf vampire hybrid zombie. Whoo!